Good afternoon. Today I'm going to speak about Transcendentalism, and I'm focusing on three writers of the 19th century America, and these are Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and finally, the major American poet Walt Whitman. I'm going to explain this verb to transcend based on the works of these three writers, although Transcendentalism in America influenced other writers as well, most notably Nathaniel Hawthorne and Herman Melville, as you are going to see in the weeks to come. Transcendentalism itself was an intellectual movement from the mid-19th century in America, and in the works of these three authors, this term actually differs a lot, as you're going to see. The oldest and the most significant of these three transcendentalists is definitely Emerson, who was the teacher, let's say, of Henry David Thoreau. However, I am going to begin with Thoreau because I think it's the easiest way for me to show you what the verb transcend actually means. Thoreau was described as a working transcendentalist, which means that he applied his philosophy of transcendentalism to the way he lived. So he applied it in a very concrete way. You can see here in the slide that was called the dreamy Thoreau because of the way he actually lived. He's best known for his classic work, Walden. I hope you heard about Walden because this is the most important tract about nature in America. He was also a poet, he was a dissenter, and of course the most notable American nature writer. He was considered dreamy while he was studying at the Harvard College, and he was also described as an individualist who was very strange and different from other people. Let's see what he actually wrote about. So Henry David Thoreau was against the government at the time in America, and this was really controversial. Emerson actually met Henry David Thoreau when he was still studying at Harvard, and Emerson observed that Thoreau was struggling with his surroundings and the way he lived, so he assisted him by inviting him to live together. However, Thoreau declined, and he continued to live alone, proving that a man can live very well in a very small room, because that's only what a man needs to live in a content way. So although Thoreau in the beginning wrote prose poetry, many essays, both philosophical and literary essays, he is famous today because of his Walden and because of one of his essays, which is called The Civil Disobedience. Here is how he described disobedience. Disobedience is the true foundation of liberty. The obedient must be slaves. So you can see based on this example that Thoreau wanted people to rebel against the American government, and in this he agreed with his teacher Emerson, and he mentions slaves here. Thoreau was a lifelong abolitionist, the same as Longfellow and the same as Ralph Waldo Emerson. Now, the civil disobedience essay, he heavily criticizes the American government because of its focus on money and material values. And we know today that the Americans have not changed a bit. So this is what he criticized back then in the 19th century. And this essay influenced later Mahatma Gandhi and his philosophy of nonviolent resistance. And let me just zoom this in and read it. This is what Gandhi said. First, they ignore you, then they laugh at you, then they fight you, then you win. This is Gandhi's comment on the civil disobedience, which means to be disobedient but without using violence. And this is a very rich idea that we could discuss in class, of course, whether sometimes violence is a necessary means to achieve a goal. And I think that we spoke about it in the Irish studies course. But Gandhi and Henry David Thoreau believed that violence is never good. And later, this all influenced Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., who fought for the rights of the Black people. So Henry David Thoreau grew up in Concord, Massachusetts, with wonderful surroundings, with forests where he used to wander about, and he himself gave his own nickname to himself, calling himself Inspector of Snowstorms and Rainstorms. He was very often made fun of because of this habit of his to walk around Concord, and he became the talk of all the town. Now, because he was a lifelong abolitionist, as I said, Thoreau was also against the Mexican-American War. I hope you remember this war from 1846 to 1848. I did mention David Crockett, I think, with regards to this war. And as a response, he wrote the essay Civil Disobedience. He basically describes how he himself rebelled against the government by not paying taxes for 6 years. And he was arrested and he spent one night in jail. However, there was an anonymous person who paid the taxes for him and he was released from prison. And Henry David Thoreau was angry because of this. He didn't want to get out of prison because then his rebellion had no point. He expressed basically disgust at the fact that somebody freed him from prison. Let's read one example from the essay itself. He says, "I heartily accept the motto, that government is best which governs least. Carried out, it finally amounts to this, which also I believe, that government is best which governs not at all. And when men are prepared for it, that will be the kind of government which they will have." So basically, government is not there to govern us, but to take care of the state's business. The government of any country should not govern the people. It should just take care of running things smoothly in one state so that people can live in a better way. And of course, this is an ideal philosophy, which is very much in accord with Transcendentalism. Because Thoreau is described as a working transcendentalist, we will see what that means. And here is one example. He says, "When I meet a government which says to me, 'Your money or your life,' why should I be in haste to give it my money?" So he prefers to give the government his life instead of giving his money because the money is what the government wants. So here you can see how disgusted he was with the focus of the Americans on the material values and on chasing what they called their American dream, which was such a popular concept, especially in the first half of the 20th century. In 1845 and 1846, Thoreau decided to put his Transcendentalism more extremely to practice by building a cabin on a land that was owned by his friend Ralph Waldo Emerson, and this land was called Walden, and it surrounded a pond. So Thoreau lived in this cabin in 1845 and 1846, and based on those experiences, he wrote his most famous book, Walden, which is about what he felt while he was living there. The book itself has many purposes. It can be read as a spiritual guidance. It can be read as his autobiography, as a philosophical essay, and so on. So there are so many layers to the book and many different meanings for each reader. Let's see what he says in Walden, and this is an inscription which you can find on site today. "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived." So this is what he wants, to live in a wood, on a piece of land, in a very small cabin, and just live with basic essentials for his life. In that way, he can become one with nature. And this is the basis of Transcendentalism, to know God through nature. It will be much clearer once I cover Emerson as well. Today you have this modern replica of Thoreau's cabin at Walden property. Here's the cabin, and here you can also see the statue of Henry David Thoreau. Let's see what else he says about his life in this cabin. I do not propose to write an ode to dejection, but to brag as lustily as Chanticleer in the morning, standing on his roost, if only to wake my neighbors up. So he compares himself to a rooster, a cock, a Chanticleer, dakle pevac petao, imali smo ovu reč više puta, because the function of the Chanticleer is to wake people up. Of course, this is spoken symbolically. He wants to awaken the humanity in people and their souls so that they can unite their souls with the nature that surrounds them. So this is what that means. And finally, to end this particular video on Thoreau, I will give you a very concrete example of what applying a philosophy means. So this is how Thoreau applied his transcendentalism in real life. An anecdote. When a neighbor wanted to hire him to build a wall, Thoreau asked himself whether this was the best way to use his time, and decided it was much better to walk in the woods. So he didn't want to accept to help this neighbor because he had better things to do, and this is how he wanted to live. And he was very proud of the fact that he was able to live with a small number of things and to live precisely the way he wanted to live. In my next video, we are going to speak about Emerson, and then I'm going to finally fully explain what Transcendentalism actually means.